Hello and a very warm welcome to Middle East Matters. Our top stories from the region this week. A flurry of nuclear negotiations for Iran as diplomats make another bid at getting a final definitive nuclear agreement signed and sealed before the July 20th deadline. Digging deep in Syria, with battles being waged and won in tunnels, we look at how the war is going underground. And called on to play fair, a growing group of sponsors cry foul and put pressure on FIFA to investigate corruption allegations. A hectic week of nuclear negotiations for Iranian senior-level officials who are holding bilateral talks with France, Russia and Germany. But only after 2 days of discussions with the US. It's the first time in decades that there's been such high-level direct talks between those two sides. Olivia Salazar-Winspear explains the implications and hopes behind all the talking.
The neutral ground of Geneva, location for the first direct talks between the US and Iran in 30 years. The closed-door negotiations are seeking to overcome a decade-old dispute surrounding Iran's nuclear policy, as well as the sanctions that have crippled the country's economy in recent years. In Tehran, many Iranians see it as a positive step.
After 30-odd years, the new government is improving relations, so I'm very optimistic. And my hope is that both our officials and the Americans see the glass as being half full.
Getting the two countries round the same table has been significantly easier since Hassan Rouhani came to power in June 2013. The Iranian leader made a strong bid to rebuild ties in his speech at the UN New York just 3 months later. At the time, he called Barack Obama the first conversation between leaders of the two countries since the Iranian hostage crisis of 1979, which took place in the US Embassy in Tehran. Diplomatic relations were practically non-existent in the following decades. Yet in October of last year, a P5+1 meeting saw some progress. The US and its partners freed up billions of dollars in frozen funds, and Iran slowed its uranium enrichment program. But the interim deal hit a stumbling block when Tehran said they'd not halt production altogether.
An enrichment program that Iran has will continue with any agreement, and that is our red line.
This has long been the sticking point, the West accusing Iran of stocking too much uranium for enrichment, fearing the development of atomic weapons. Tehran has always maintained that the program is for civil energy purposes. The Iranian delegation is also meeting with representatives from France and Germany, talks that are looking to break the current state of limbo before the July deadline for a firm agreement from Iran.
Well, as mentioned there in that last report, since Iran's President Hassan Rouhani took office last year, Tehran has seen relations with many countries improve. Rouhani made a landmark trip to Turkey, the first official visit since 1996. It comes at a time when the two countries remain sharply divided over the war in Syria. But both sides have now pledged to work together to stop extremism and bloodshed in the region. Bloodshed that continues unabated, and while President Bashar al-Assad announces that several dozen prisoners have been released as part of an amnesty that covers all crimes committed in the country before the 9th of June, the fighting wages on and has taken to tunnels underneath the cities. Alex Turnbull brings us down under.
A neighbourhood crushed by months of war. This is what's left of Jobar, on the outskirts of Damascus. A Syrian soldier watches. The corpse of a rebel he shot the day before lies just 100 meters away. Here, though, the war is being fought increasingly underground. The Syrian army commander explains tunnel warfare as the latest front in the 3-year-old conflict.
It's like in Paris, in fact. You have rats in the sewers while we have rebels.
Rebels have dug dozens of kilometers of tunnels under Jobar. Since the army captured some of them, soldiers have installed electricity. Another tunnel branches off to the left. The commander asks for silence. This is the underground front line.
This my camera. My camera. This camera. Take a photo. Bring to television. Outside.
At the end, the basement of a building occupied by rebels. The images from the camera are sent here to this control room. The army commander says hundreds of these cameras line the tunnels, and they're not just for monitoring.
Each one is booby-trapped. If a rebel gets too close, it explodes.
The Syrian army has good reason to keep an eye on these tunnels. A week before in Aleppo, rebels blew up a barracks by placing explosives under the building. And a few days before that, they destroyed an Air Force base the same way. Aleppo rebels filmed this on the other side of the front line. Their footage appears to show a group of well-organized and well-equipped fighters.
We're taking measures to make sure that we really are under the Carlton Hotel where the army stays.
For these fighters, it's time to pull back, withdraw to a safe house to watch the explosion from a distance. 14 people were killed in the attack. The Syrian army has made it a priority to prevent these deadly bombings. Lieutenant Rafat joined the new special unit set up in recent months to drive rebels out of their underground hideouts.
Here we dug a 5-metre deep ditch to cut through their tunnels, but they soon started going deeper underneath to attack it from the rear.
Down the road, these men started digging after they heard noises coming from under this house.
Metal clicks, in fact, a few days ago. We think they're building a tunnel further down, so we're digging to cut them off.
Soldiers head back underground to patrol the tunnels. The Syrian army is now also using Jobar's network of galleries to launch attacks. They know whoever wins the battle will control a strategic access point to the capital, Damascus.
Egypt's outgoing Prime Minister, Ibrahim Malab, has been tasked with forming a new government, a request coming, of course, from Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who was sworn in on Sunday. Celebrations marking his inauguration were marred, however, as police arrested 7 men for sexually assaulting a 19-year-old and said they were investigating 27 other complaints of similar attacks on Tahrir Square during the festivities. FIFA President Sepp Blatter says racism could be at play in the scores of corruption accusations being fielded over the decision to award the 2022 World Cup to Qatar. Qatar beat the US, Australia, Japan and South Korea in their bid to host the tournament, despite technical reports by FIFA warning that soaring summer temperatures in Qatar posed a health risk. Blatter is on the defensive as a growing number of sponsors cry foul and call for an investigation.
More calls for FIFA to come clean. The maker of Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, has joined the ranks of World Cup sponsors speaking out against the football body over corruption allegations.
We are concerned about the situation and expect FIFA to take all necessary steps to address the issue.
BP, that owns Castor Oil, also chimed in, saying it expected FIFA to resolve the problem in a, quote, right and proper manner. The move came a day after top FIFA sponsors like Coca-Cola, Adidas and Sony simultaneously broke their silence and called for an investigation into the scandal surrounding Qatar's bid for the 2022 World Cup. The companies have big stakes in the football event, and the negative impact of the corruption case is too big to ignore.
The attitude towards corporate governance has changed a lot in the last 20 years. And just about every major company will have extremely strong rules about compliance and governance. So they will be worried about damage to their brand if it's not sorted out quickly.
FIFA knows the sponsors' words are not to be taken lightly. Of its $1.4 billion in revenue last year, over $400 million, almost a third, came from these corporates. FIFA's president Sepp Blatter tweeted in response, but appealed for more time to investigate the allegations.
He paints a homeland he's never seen, and his work gets pride of place in exhibitions there. But the artist isn't allowed to attend the show and see the admiration his work stirs up. Ismail Dahlan is a Palestinian painter who lives in Gaza. He puts his parents' memories on canvas and dreams of getting to walk in the reality behind his inspiration.
Ismail Dahlan mostly paints portraits. On a huge canvas, the vibrant colours give life to a tormented character. His 4 children beside him, Ismail revives the residents of his ancestors' village, his family's hometown, now in Israeli territory.
I start by creating this image in my mind of the towns I cannot travel to. It was the stories my parents and my grandfather told me, and I try and imagine what my country looked like and what people's life there was like.
In 1948, like an estimated 700,000 Palestinians, the Israeli army's advance forced Ismail's family to flee. They settled in Gaza, whilst others left for the West Bank or refugee camps in Lebanon, Jordan or Syria. Last May, Ismail received an invitation to hang his paintings in Ramallah for an exhibition of artworks from the Gaza Strip, but Israeli authorities refused to grant him a visa.
We hoped to take part in the exhibition. It was the first time we could present our work, and I'm very surprised that they wouldn't allow me to travel on the grounds that I'm under 35. But I'm already 36 years old.
Of the 45 artists organisers invited, only 12 were allowed to leave the Gaza Strip. For the painters and sculptors, the show could have been a rare opportunity to get the art world's attention.
While visiting Gaza, I've realized that the siege on Gaza is affecting the artists extremely hard and harsh. Most of them could not sell their paintings for a long period of time. Most of the artists could not leave Gaza to visit markets like Dubai or New York or London or even Ramallah.
Despite the blockade, Ismail has no intention of giving up painting, but he's had to work at the local theatre to feed his family.
Well, that brings us to the end of the show. Don't forget, if you missed the start or want to watch any of those reports again, it's all on our website, france24.com. Have a great week and we'll see you again next time.